Hello and welcome to the weekly Rushes, your rushed rush through all the movie and streaming news this week. And what a week it's been. Obviously there's the massive news story of Alec Baldwin actually being charged with manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. But then also this week there's an enormous amount of casting news and new project news, which is rather nice. Obviously also this week, tomorrow, Tuesday the 24th, maybe this might go out just afterwards, the Oscar nominations are going to be announced. They've gone down from the long list. Not at all sour about that, down to the shortlist, down to the nominations. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow, potentially responding live to the announcement tomorrow when it happens. But also the BAFTA nominations have happened this week too. So without further ado, let's go action. So of course the top news story for the last week or so has been the Alec Baldwin news regarding the fact that he faces involuntary manslaughter charges regarding the on-set shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. Obviously his attorney has said that they're going to push back on that massively. A number of people don't think he's actually going to be successfully charged, though as we talked about on Coffee Moaning, I think he's more vulnerable as the producer of the project, because if you're the producer, then if you've cut budgets, cut corners, if there was a sort of working environment or culture on set that meant that there was a sort of question mark even over whether there could be live rounds in a gun, then that does essentially fall down to the responsibility of the producers of the film, of which he is one. And yet, here's the oddest part of this whole story. I mean, lots of people feel that he's been bullish, insensitive, quite cold in his press and publicity around this, but I've argued that perhaps on a sort of mental health perspective, he needs to be certain about this, otherwise it will creep in and just destroy him. Because one thing is for certain, no one intentionally killed Miss Halyna Hutchins. Alec Baldwin's lawyers incidentally described this as a miscarriage of justice, that the charges have even been brought against him. They say that this decision distorts Halyna Hutchins' tragic death and represents a terrible miscarriage of justice. Mr. Baldwin had no reason to believe there was a live bullet in the gun or anywhere on the movie set. He relied on the professionals with whom he worked, who assured him the gun did not have live rounds, which is why also the armourer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, has also been charged with the same involuntary manslaughter charges. And here is the most curious development. I couldn't quite believe this headline. It was in the Independent early this week. Alec Baldwin is going to continue filming Rust. They're going to carry on. Now, there was the suggestion prior to these charges that they were going to resurrect shooting. Halyna Hutchins' husband was in support of this. And this is happening. I don't know if you remember, in the fracas and the awfulness of the tragedy of the shooting, Halyna Hutchins obviously died. But he also hit in the chest the director. And the director is coming back to shoot the film. So there's this curious sort of dichotomy between charges, culpability, potential prison time for Alec Baldwin and other members of the crew versus a desire to get the film still made. And so I can't help but wonder whether trying to get the film made will be read as insensitive given everything else that's going on. It's the most bizarre aspect of this story that I've seen develop, really, to be fair. This is a brief story. Obviously, tragically, Leslie Jordan died last year. He died in a car crash in Los Angeles, and the cause of death has been revealed. There was a lot of suspicion about the fact that he must have, experienced some kind of health trauma or medical issue or illness or heart attack or stroke or something whilst driving the car. The Los Angeles County coroner has issued or revealed the official cause of death of Leslie Jordan. Obviously, Leslie Jordan, I know him best. He's a stand-up comedian. He's been in many shows such as Will and Grace and what have you, but I got to know him best in American Horror Story. He was a regular sort of feature or face across many of those series. His cause of death was heart failure due to arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, and it was therefore deemed a natural death. He crashed on Cahuenga Boulevard, and he was on the way to his sitcom Call Me Kat. Sadly missed. There's lots of memes still popping up on social media where he's such a lively, alive character. So he's a massive loss. And so, yeah, it's been confirmed that essentially he died or suffered a major heart attack, essentially, at the wheel of his car. This next story I thought was quite entertaining and I wanted to share with you because just sometimes these things pass you by. Maybe you're not subscribed to Apple TV, but this curious commercial came out. It's not really a commercial, but it's a film starring Timothée Chalamet. They did something like this a while ago with Jon Hamm, where they essentially had a small film with Jon Hamm in it, with him sort of, in a sense, bemoaning the fact that he hasn't actually been featured in an Apple TV series. And then, of course, he was featured in The Morning Show, starring Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. So Timothée Chalamet's done something quite sort of similar, and obviously the girls are huge Timothée Chalamet fans. We're all Timothée Chalamet fans. He's brilliant in Bones and all as well. But this is quite amusing, and I thought it might be quite nice to share with you. This is Timothée Chalamet himself bemoaning the fact that he hasn't been featured or asked to star in anything for Apple TV. And it's quite nice to see a sort of A-lister of his caliber essentially saying, cast me, please. So let's check it out.
Wow, Apple. Best Picture.
So amazing, right?
Yeah. I was in 2 Best Picture nominees last year.
Yeah, no, I know that. You were great.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence. Selena Gomez documentary. I don't have a documentary. That's comedy on TV. I could do TV. Severance is weird. I could do weird. Blackbird. I guess I could do prison. What's going on, Jason?
What up, Timmy? I just wrapped my new Apple Series Chief 4.
Wait, you have a new Apple show?
At this point, who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't at this point? Like you just said. It's just Sudeikis with a mustache. Scorsese. DiCaprio. De Niro. Hey, Apple. Call me.
Oh, I like that. I like it when an A-lister is willing to take the piss out of themselves, though I can pretty much guarantee that he's done that and he's about to star in something for Apple TV, or there's going to be a big announcement. I like the authenticity of the fact that him and Jason Momoa are on the blower to each other, given that they're co-stars in Dune. I just thought that was a bit entertaining. Now, this week just gone, the BAFTA nominations were released. As I say, the Oscar nominations are being released tomorrow. And the BAFTA nominations, I just thought we could run through some of the contenders because they're slightly different to the Golden Globes. So what's been nominated at this year's BAFTAs? Well, in the Best Film category, not surprisingly, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, The Banshees, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Tar. Don't mention the Tar. It's usually don't mention the war. Do mention the war. All Quiet on the Western Front, I have to say, is absolutely sensational. So for me, it's a double header there between Banshees and All Quiet. Though Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of those films that stays with you. And in fact, Elvis was in my top 10. Tar, just going to check out our review for you to sort of fully understand what I think of that. They have this curious category, which is Outstanding British Film. Separate to Best Film. And in there, we've got additional films featured, like After Sun, the Paul Mescal film about him being a father and his daughter sort of on holiday together. He's an absent father. Brian and Charles, the charming sort of British comedy about a guy who makes a really strange AI. Empire of Light. Check out our review for my theory on that. Good luck to you, Leo Grande. Good. Living, I think that's deservedly so. Living with Bill Nighy. Roald Dahl's Matilda. See How They Run. I'm staggered by that. The Swimmers and The Wonder. And I think The Wonder is yet again another very, very justified entry there. Now, in the leading actress categories, obviously Cate Blanchett's in there for Tar. She's probably favourite to win them all. I had huge reservations about her performance in Tar. Viola Davis is in there for the Woman King. Ana de Armas is there for Blonde, and I think this is the first time I've seen her pop up on a Best Actress list. So for me, I think that's really important. Regardless of what you think of Blonde, her performance is absolutely sensational. Danielle Deadwyler is there in Till. Haven't seen that yet. Emma Thompson in Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, and Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that's a double-header sort of fight between Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh. Leading actor, Austin Butler Elvis, Brendan Fraser The Whale. Our review of The Whale is coming soon. Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin. Daryl McCormack for Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, and I think that's really well deserved. I thought, I liked the film, but I thought he was sensational in it. Paul Mescal for After Sun and Bill Nighy for Living. Now, I've got a funny hunch that Bill Nighy might do quite well in that. I mean, he's very good. He's a sort of stalwart of British cinema. If I was to honest, I think it has to either for me really be Brendan Fraser or Austin Butler. Best Supporting Actress, Angela Bassett for Black Panther, Hong Chow for The Whale, she's very good, she's also in the menu, Kerry Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere, Dolly De Leon for Triangle of Sadness, and Carey Mulligan for She Said. Now, of those, I haven't seen all of those films, but one of those performances that particularly stood out to me as sensational is Kerry Condon in The Banshees of Inisherin. Supporting Actor, Brendan Gleeson, Barry Keoghan are both there for The Banshees of Inisherin, Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, we know him from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies. Eddie Redmayne, The Good Nurse. We haven't reviewed that. We did watch that. It's a very good film. Him and Jessica Chastain. Albrecht Schuch for All Quiet on the Western Front. Amazing. I mean, I know the idea of watching a war movie is possibly a turn-off for many, but really, it's unlike any other war movie. And Michael Ward for Empire of Light. It was good, but I think the film was a bit thin. If I had to go for one there, I'd love it to be Barry Keoghan, but I'd also really love it to be Ke Huy Quan. For Best Director, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Edward Berger, The Banshees of Inisherin, Martin McDonagh, Decision to Leave, Park Chan-wook. That sort of split people, didn't it, Decision to Leave. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, Daniel Kwan and Danielle Scheinert. Tar, Todd Field, and The Woman King by Gina Prince Bythewood. I personally would like to see, I think I'd quite like to see All Quiet on the Western Front, because that was a sensationally complex film to direct. Though I hear that Decision to Leave is impressive, though I didn't like it. And Everything Everywhere All at Once is just batshit crazy. Other ones, film not in an English language, All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina 1985, Corsage, which I saw, bit weird, Decision to Leave, and for me, my favourite in this one, actually, above All Quiet on the Western Front, would be The Quiet Girl. So I'd quite like to see All Quiet on the Western Front winning Best Picture, and I'd like to see The Quiet Girl, the sort of Irish language film, winning as a foreign picture. That was also in my top 10 films. I reckon animated film, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio could win there. Turning Red is in there too, as is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Original screenplay, there's The Banshees, there's Everything Everywhere, The Fabelmans, Tar, Triangle of Sadness. Now, I think what's curious is The Fabelmans has not featured in any of the Best Picture categories, has it? The Fabelmans is not there, which is curious. So the only section that, and not in the Best Director either, which is curiously disappointing. Our review of The Fabelmans is landing. So original screenplay, The Fabelmans is in there, Tar and Triangle of Sadness. I personally would say The Banshees of Inisherin there. Adapted screenplay, All Quiet on the Western Front, Living, The Quiet Girl, She Said, and The Whale. I'd like to go for The Quiet Girl there. And then there are lots of all the technical nominations, which I'd love to go through, but will be a little tiresome for you. And talking of award ceremonies, the Oscars are obviously sort of, trundling towards us. If only they were trundling towards us in a little bit more of a sort of, having been shortlisted or nominated way. Anyway, we had our own little flirtation with it. Well, we had our own little Oscar journey, didn't we? As many of you have supported us. Sadly, we didn't make it to the final section. However, the Oscar nominations are being announced tomorrow, but the Academy is being put under pressure by numerous kind of trade magazines, journalists, filmmakers, producers, critics in America, suggesting that the Academy needs to start rewarding commercially successful films. They particularly home in on Top Gun Maverick and The Batman, and also Wakanda Forever, Black Panther. I think the idea being that, it's been mired in controversy. I don't know if you remember the year that they believed that Moonlight had won, is that right? And then in fact it was La La Land, that terrible mistake with Warren Beatty reading out the wrong thing. And then we had Will Smith's slap of Chris Rock. I mean, in a weird way, these sort of total disasters kind of mean that there's a lot more attention for the Oscars. So I think the idea of trying to hoover out sort of controversy is possibly a bad idea. But anyway, cinema owners, broadcasters, they're all saying that the 9,500 eligible Academy voters need to start voting for films like blockbuster films like Top Gun, The Batman and Black Panther. There's a dark irony in this, in that I think Spielberg for many years was overlooked at the Oscars because he made films that were considered too commercially successful. And now we have a situation where he's made a really personal, almost art house-esque film for Spielberg, and he could possibly be overlooked because the Academy are being encouraged to go for commercially successful films. I mean, films like Avatar, often the commercially successful films do really well in the visual effects, the special effects, the makeup, costume, all that kind of stuff, but rarely do they do well in the best picture, which is curious when you think that, films such as Wakanda Forever, Top Gun, The Batman, Avatar, they pull in so much money. And there's a sense that if the Academy was to recognise these films, the ceremonies and the significance of the Oscars could actually improve. Okay, which brings us to some of the new projects that are happening, directorial projects, new films, casting choices, all that kind of stuff. Now, Antoine Fuqua, director, he was the director of the recent Emancipation, which kind of got mired in all the controversy of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. Will Smith was the star. It's a film about a well-documented slave whose photograph of his injuries was instrumental, in fact, in America kind of abolishing slavery, and Will Smith plays that slave. Well, Antoine Fuqua is probably looking for something that could kind of outdo that, because of course there was a lot of chat about whether Emancipation would be viable for the Oscars, but of course Will Smith has been banned and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, not afraid of controversy, he's now helming a Michael Jackson biopic, which is simply called Michael. The official blurb on this is that it's going to chart Jackson's rise to fame, his troubled family life, his musical inspirations, his superstardom, but it's not going to ignore the chaos of his personal life, it's not going to ignore his plastic surgery, skin change, all that kind of stuff, but also even the paedophilia accusations that dogged him up until the age of 50 when he had a cardiac arrest. So I think it's going to be an unflinching portrait, which I think is a good thing, because I think these biopics of musicians and rock stars need to, be honest, in a sense. Fuqua, you know, cut his teeth on music videos at the beginning of his career, so this is kind of like a return to a sort of safe zone. He's currently finishing up on The Equalizer 3, and once that's done, he'll start to film this new film. There's no announcement yet as to who's playing Michael Jackson, but the script is written by the Skyfall scriptwriter John Logan, and the film is being produced by Graham King, who was also behind Bohemian Rhapsody, so maybe the Midas touch can touch things twice. If you check out the Popcorn Junkies Instagram account, you'll see that we've revealed, or not revealed, but it's been announced who's playing Amy Winehouse in the new film Back to Black, being directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. Sam Taylor Johnson directed 50 Shades of Grey and all that sort of stuff. It was kind of, it's a bit cringe and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't mean she's not necessarily a good director. So she's directing Back to Black. It's been announced, obviously, that Marisa Abela is playing Amy Winehouse. She was in a series called Industry, but she's a relative newcomer. She looks the part, but other members of the cast are thickening out. They started shooting last week in London, Ronnie Scott's. Jack O'Connell is going to be in there playing Blake Fielder Civil, the controversial partner of Amy Winehouse, or boyfriend. Eddie Marsan is in there playing her father, who is also a huge part of the Amy Winehouse story. And Leslie Manville is going to be playing Amy Winehouse's maternal grandmother, I believe. So yeah, it's a film that is going to concentrate on her music, it's going to concentrate on her genius, it's also going to look at the craziness and colour of Camden, so I think it could be quite a nice sort of, you know, era piece. And a little bit like the Michael Jackson one, I think this will benefit from them taking a searingly honest approach to the sort of trauma and travails that Amy went through. Tron, who remembers the movie Tron? Was it Jeff Bridges in Tron? It was a curious sort of electronic, trapped in a grid-like game. It never did it for, did they throw sort of like discuses and all that kind of stuff? It was a big thing when I was young. I seem to remember them, were they on roller skates or rollerblades or something? I remember even as a young kid thinking, it's a bit naff, but it has a huge following. Anyway, Tron Ares is being made. This is, or is starting to kind of rumble into development. Tron Ares is a new sequel. I think there was a remake, or there was another film of Tron, wasn't there, in 2010? This is a sequel to that. I think it was called Tron Legacy, that film. This is being directed by Joachim Ronning. He directed Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge, and he also did Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which I think was the sequel. But the big news with this is that Jared Leto is to star. Jared Leto is a curious thing at the moment, isn't he? I'm not entirely sure if he's a box office attribute or a bit of a liability. Morbius wasn't particularly successful. House of Gucci, I thought he was incredibly watchable, but I think for all the wrong reasons in a weird way. But Jared Leto says, I'm so very excited and proud to confirm that, yes, I will be starring in Tron. So it looks like Disney are pushing ahead with this, and he says, see you in the grid. News just in, Alex Wolff, fabulous young actor, Alex Wolff, who was in Hereditary. I think he was he in the original A Quiet Place? Anyway, Alex Wolff is joining A Quiet Place day one. This is a new spin-off film starring also Lupita Nyong'o. It's also starring Stranger Things breakout star, new sort of arrival, Joseph Quinn. It's directed by Michael Sarnowski. We've talked about it before. He directed Pig, starring Nick Cage. And Alex Wolff is now the latest recruit to the film. It's a continuation of Surviving the Same Monsters. I do worry about A Quiet Place, that if you've got the same sort of monster, which we've seen, could it get a bit tiresome? The silence thing is a brilliant effect, but I do wonder whether it had its biggest effect the first time we saw it in the first film. But anyway, this A Quiet Place Day One spin-off will be in cinemas on the 8th of March next year. And I do think the thing really to get me excited about this is the director. He's a very interesting director, and if you haven't seen Pig, please go and check it out. Another huge success at the box office this year is Megan. If you haven't seen Megan, check out our review. Me and Maddie saw it. Very camp, very, very sort of tongue-in-cheek, sending up all the tropes of sort of horror films. It's not, and yet in our review we kind of got to the point where we said it was neither scary enough and it was neither funny enough, and yet it was curious enough to sort of keep you there and make you say to people, oh yeah, go and see it, which I think has happened an awful lot, because Megan, which was made for around $12 million, has grossed I think upward now of $100 million at the American box office, which is a huge return on investment. So it's no surprise that Universal are now saying, right, Megan 2 is coming, or Megan 2.0, like an iPhone, you know, a new iteration of the robot. It's going to be released on the 17th of January 2025. Now, given the fact that the film ends homing in on a sort of Alexa type piece of kit, I'm curious to know how Megan 2 is going to come into reality. You might not have heard of this director, but the director Rob Savage is a name I think we need to keep an eye on. I think he has the potential to become as big as Spielberg in terms of his innovation, his sort of ability to kind of appeal to a really broad audience with quite niche ideas. He made Dashcam, truly scary, truly horrifying. Do check it out. But he also made a film, I think in lockdown, called Host, which was essentially a Zoom call, and they do a seance online, and it all goes horrendously wrong. Host and Dashcam. If you like horror films, check them out. Low budget, highly effective. He's making a film film. He's doing an adaptation of Stephen King's The Boogeyman. And this was going to go straight to Hulu as a series, I think, but it's now moving to, or as a film, but it's now moving to a theatrical release. And the reason for this is because, like Smile, that Paramount also made, I was a bit disappointed by that, but it's done incredibly well at the box office. Test screenings of The Boogeyman have encouraged executives to say, no, let's release it at the cinema. They feel they could make some money here. They also had a nice double with Smile, and also Barbarian did really well, which grossed over 40 million off a 10 million production cost, which is an astonishing turnaround too. Not quite as good as Megan, but very good. So innovative, low-budget horror films are really delivering at the box office at the moment. So it's no surprise that Boogeyman, which was a story featured in Stephen King's 1978 Night Shift collection of stories, is now being given the theatrical treatment. But it's also in really capable hands with Rob Savage, the director. I think that makes it very exciting. So the film sort of centres on a young teenager mourning, and with her sister mourning their mother's death. A boogeyman from the beyond enters their lives after their psychologist dad has an encounter with a patient in their home. That's the premise. We all know the soundtracks of John Williams. John Williams, the man who's possibly done the soundtracks to every single conceivable Steven Spielberg film, all the Star Wars films, Superman, all that kind of stuff. Schindler's List. He is a fabulous composer. He's now 91. I believe he has finally hung up his conducting baton. But Steven Spielberg and his production company Amblin are making a documentary about his life and about his career. He's been nominated, get this, for 52 Academy Awards, 52, during his 67-year career. Obviously, he did things like Fiddler on the Roof. I didn't realise that. Star Wars, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Schindler's List. More recently, he's done The Fabelmans, and he's also even done the sort of Star Wars series, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it will be a sort of, celebration of, an adoration of, lots of interviews with people. If you're into film and cinephile, if you're a cinephile, this will be a great film to watch. In other news, Rami Malek, curious actor who I find eminently watchable. I can't work out whether for the right or wrong reasons. Rami Malek, and this is great, a great bit of casting, is starring in a Buster Keaton limited series that's to be directed and helmed by Matt Reeves, the man behind The Batman. Warner Brothers is developing this. It's a film, as I say, about the vaudeville turned silent comedy movie star. It's based loosely on a book called Buster Keaton, A Filmmaker's Life. It will profile his life. His career waned, his career sort of petered out. I think talking movies came in and all that. His wife divorced him. He struggled with alcoholism, and yet he sort of bounced back again in the 1940s. And this film, or this series, will focus on that. I think this is a perfect fit for Rami Malek, who is incredibly physical, incredibly visual in face and energy. And I think this I think this is a brilliant fit. This is one of those casting fits that's great. And with Matt Reeves at the helm directing, I'd be fascinated to see how the Batman director treats this. Now, I know there are lots of you who are fans of Only Murders in the Building. I've seen the first 3 episodes of season 1. I found it really comforting, really safe, really calmly enjoyable. It was lovely to see Steve Martin, lovely to see Martin Short, and Selena Gomez is in there too. It was sort of very excitedly revealed that Paul Rudd was obviously in the 2nd season. I haven't got there yet, just haven't had the time. But it's been revealed, or rather Selena Gomez has revealed, who's going to feature in Only Murders in the Building season 3. So it was a surprise announcement on her Twitter account. I thought we should watch it rather than me just reporting it. So let's check out Selena Gomez's little message on Twitter.
Sorry.
Hey guys, we're on set.
Hey.
What are we shooting?
Oh, hi there.
Season 3.
Right.
The gang is back.
Hello.
Yay! Could this honestly get any better?
Wait.
Well, I do think it could get a little bit better.
Why?
What do you mean?
Steve, do you want a pillow?
Yeah, oh, please. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Marty, anything you need?
Just the tea that I'd asked for half an hour ago.
Okay, thank you, Meryl. Very sweet.
Oh.
Meryl Streep. What more to say? Meryl Streep looks like she's joining the 3rd season of Only Murders in the Building. Which brings us to films of the week. And films of this week, there are 2 films, really, ostensibly. There's the tentpole film that's absolutely nosedived and bombed at the American box office, and I think it's probably going to do the same here, though that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, even though it's only got 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Everything not looking good for it. It also clocks in at 3 hours, 9 minutes long. This is Damien Chazelle, who you'll know, director of La La Land, also director of Whiplash. Could argue that Whiplash is still yet his best film to date. Babylon, set in the decadence, nihilism, hedonism, coke-taking frenzy of 1920s Hollywood, starring all sorts of great actors: Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Diego Calva, Gene Smart, Legion Legion Lee. Tobey Maguire's in there looking particularly sort of menacing and creepy. This is mad, cocaine-thrilled, driven insanity. You've got things like Margot Robbie talking about icing her nipples, all this kind of stuff. It's crazy, it's batshit crazy. I mean, I'm going along because I like anything about Hollywood. We've talked about whether it might be based on Hollywood Babylon, that book by Kenneth Anger. This is going to be about all the terrible things that happened in Hollywood in the 1920s, so I think there'll be something to like in it. They're a whopping 3 hours, 9 minutes. I think that's even longer. Is that longer than Avatar? I mean, these films are asking an awful lot of us in terms of time. And the other release is a sort of, well, I say art house just because it's foreign. Why do we always assume that a foreign film is art house? This is an Iranian film called Holy Spider, and this has done quite well on the festival circuit. I think this could be worthy of your attention. Holy Spider focuses on a journalist who dips into a sort of underworld, if you like, in the Iranian holy city of Mashhad. She's investigating a number of serial killings of sex workers by the so-called Spider Killer. And the Spider Killer is a serial killer who believes they're kind of ridding the streets of sinners. I'm always fascinated by films that actually go behind, it's not the Iron Curtain, but a sort of curtain of sorts. So to see something come out of Iran is always interesting. I think I'm always curious to see films that come out of there. And Iran has a very strong kind of reputation for very powerful films. So I think Holy Spider could be well worth our attention. And there you have it, this week's Weekly Rushes, all your streaming news and movie news across the week. Tell us which stories grabbed you, tell us what you think, and I hope you have a wonderful film watching week.